This is East Asia Tonight.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Otelia Edwards. Tonight's top stories from East Asia. Moving to clean up cross-border scam gangs, China flies in a top official to oversee the repatriation of hundreds of its nationals from the Thai-Myanmar border. Now, Beijing accuses Washington of serious regression on Taiwan-related issues after the U.S. State Department removed a key phrase from its website concerning Taiwan's independence. Now, South Korea blocks the download of the Chinese AI app DeepSeek over privacy concerns, sparking rebuke from Beijing about politicizing trade and tech. And a rare meeting between Xi Jinping and business leaders shaping Asia's largest economy, signaling support for the private sector after years of turmoil. Also in East Asia tonight, Taiwan People's Party, the island's third largest political force, has a new leader. What can Huang Kuo-chang bring to the table amid a fragmented opposition? And we turn to Singapore, where leader of the opposition, Pritam Singh, was found guilty on 2 charges of lying to Parliament. China has dispatched a high-ranking official to the Thai-Myanmar border as it prepares to receive about 600 Chinese nationals, victims of scam syndicates operating in the region. Liu Zhongyi, China's Assistant Public Security Minister, visited Thailand's Mae Sot district and also crossed into Myanmar's Myawaddy town, a hotspot for criminal gangs running telecom scam operations. And for more on this, we are joined now by CNA's Saksit Sasambat, live from Bangkok. Saksit, first up, what do we know about Mr. Liu's visit to Mae Sot as well as Myawaddy, and any more details about the repatriation of those Chinese scam victims?
No, this is not the first time that Mr. Liu has been to Thailand. He actually has been pretty busy in recent weeks here. He already came first time in late January when the phenomenon of scam centers flamed up again. Not a new problem, but a renewed problem, so to speak, ever since the public and very prominent misadventure of Chinese actor Wang Xing became a viral story in the People's Republic of China. As I said before, Mr. Liu was here in late January meeting with Thai police, telling them that 36 Chinese scam center or call center gangs are operating in the borderlands between Thailand and Myanmar, and basically telling them to crack down on them. Now, then he followed up on this visit on this weekend, traveling to Mae Sot again, and also for the first time going over to Myanmar as well to talk to the other side, not only to representatives of the military government, but also with the ethnic armed militia groups that are controlling the border areas between Thailand and Myanmar as well. And again, he went there to see preparations to repatriate 10,000 people that were working in scam centers, and among them, more than half of them are Chinese citizens, reportedly. But as far as we know, and as far as CNN understands, there will be no handover whatsoever today on this Monday. Mr. Liu himself actually has already left Mae Sot, a destination unknown, but it seems to be that he has been here to see that everything is prepared when this handover, when this repatriation is going to take place.
Right, even though Mr. Liu, he's gone over to Myanmar, it seems or it appears that much of China's focus on tackling this issue has been centered on Thailand. Any particular reason why?
Yeah, and we have said before, ever since we had this misadventure by the Chinese actor Wang Xing, and that has become such big news, big headlines in mainland China, so much so that Chinese tourists were afraid to come to Thailand to spend their holidays here. That has spurred the Thai government into action. It coincided with the visit by Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to Beijing, meeting with Xi Jinping, but also it became a bigger problem because Thailand is a transitional country. So what does it mean? It means that a lot of these victims, a lot of these people that are working in scam centers are being lured to Thailand first and then brought over to the border when they would be crossing to the border, working in these scam centers compound with armed guards and being forced to conduct online and call center scams. And if they're not meeting their quota, there also is the threat of physical punishment, of torture. This is what we are hearing from those people that have been repatriated last week, 260 of them. And surprisingly, also a large amount of these people coming from sub-Saharan Africa. The majority from them are from Ethiopia. But also, it seems to be that in the next few days, we could expect more people from many different nationalities coming over there. Of course, a large bunch of them are from mainland China, but it also goes to show that there is pressure from the People's Republic of China on Thailand to actually get on top of this problem, to deal with what's going on at the border, while at the same time also dealing with scam centers to its own border with Myanmar as well, that are under control of ethnic armed militias. So this goes to show that this is not only a problem between two countries, and as I mentioned before, the victims are from all over the world, so it goes to show that this is becoming more of a problem between two countries. It affects more than that.
Thanks for highlighting that. CNA's Saksit Sambat speaking to us in Bangkok. Well, China says that the U.S. position on Taiwan has, in its words, seriously backpedaled after a line was removed on a U.S. government website. But just last week, the U.S. State Department updated its Taiwan fact sheet, maintaining its commitment to the One China policy. But it removed a line saying that the U.S. does not support Taiwan's independence.
我们敦促美方立即纠正错误，切实恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报，慎之又慎，处理台湾问题，停止以台制华，停止升级美台实质关系，停止驻台拓展国际空间，停止纵容支持台独，避免对中美关系和台海和平稳定造成进一步严重损害。
The revised webpage still stresses Washington's opposition to any unilateral actions from either Taiwan or China, but it has added a new endorsement saying that the U.S. supports Taiwan's membership in international organizations where applicable. A Taiwan Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung said this was a positive signal for U.S.-Taiwan relations. Beijing regards Taiwan as part of its territory to be eventually reunited with the mainland and has not ruled out the use of force to bring it under its control. The U.S., like most countries, has no formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but is its strongest international backer, bound by law to provide the island with the means to defend itself. Separately, China's military has condemned a Canadian warship that sailed through the Taiwan Strait yesterday. Well, the People's Liberation Army's Eastern Theatre Command said that Canada's actions deliberately stirred up trouble and undermined peace in the strait, and they are on alert at all times to counter all threats. Beijing added that its air and naval forces had monitored and warned the ship. The Canadian military declined to comment. Now, the vessel was spotted just a few days after American Navy ships made a similar journey. The U.S. Navy, along with other allied countries like Canada and Britain, occasionally travels through the strait, which it considers as an international waterway. Now, Taiwan shares the same view, but Beijing says that the waterway belongs to it. Now, Taiwan's foreign ministry welcomed Canada's move, saying it has once again taken actions to defend the freedom of the strait. A time now for a short break, but coming up next on East Asia tonight. South Korea suspends new downloads of Chinese AI app DeepSeek over privacy concerns. And what does Xi Jinping's meeting with China's top tech talents signify? CNA's Deborah Wong and a special guest joins us next. They're watching East Asia tonight. China has hit out at countries that politicize trade and technology. Its foreign ministry said in a press briefing that Beijing hopes that relevant countries can avoid implementing, quote, measures that overstretch the concept of security. Well, this follows South Korea's blocking of new downloads of Chinese artificial intelligence app DeepSeek.
국내 언론 등에서 지적된 제3 사업자와 통신 기능, 개인정보 처리 방침상 미흡한 부분이 있음을 일부 확인하였습니다.
South Korea's Data Protection Authority, PIPC, says that DeepSeek had to be suspended since the app acknowledged failing to meet rules on protecting personal data. Well, authorities say the app will only resume after changes are made to meet the country's privacy law. Now, the decision will not affect users who have already downloaded the app. While new downloads of the app were blocked from Saturday, DeepSeek's web service remains accessible in South Korea. Officials have advised South Korean users to delete DeepSeek from their devices or avoid entering personal information into the tool until the issues are resolved. Well, last week, the South Korea's spy agency accused DeepSeek of collecting excessive personal data, saying that the app uses all input data to train its AI model. Some South Korean government ministries have blocked the app, and other countries have raised similar security concerns, including Italy and Australia. China's tech sector in focus at a symposium in Beijing that has market watchers all excited. Well, Roland Lim is standing by to tell us all the very latest. Roland?
Thanks, Natalie. Our Chinese President Xi Jinping has hosted a rare meeting with the country's top business leaders, including some of the biggest names in tech. The symposium is seen as an effort to boost private business sentiment as China faces an intensifying trade war with the U.S. on top of slowing economic growth. Mr. Xi reportedly delivered a speech urging company chiefs to expand their businesses domestically and internationally. Alibaba co-founder Jack Ma was there, as well as the founder of DeepSeek and the CEOs of Meituan, Xiaomi, and Huawei. And for more, we're joined by CNA's very own Deborah Wong and Liao Minjiong, who is senior economist and head of TS Lombard Asia Pacific. Thanks to both of you for joining us live from Hong Kong. Deborah, let's start with you. Why is this meeting so important to China's economy?
Well, I think it first signifies, that China's priority to boost private business sentiment is really important here. That's important because the private sector contributes to over 60% of China's economic output and about 80% of urban employment. So the idea is that if they throw their weight behind the private sector, it does raise investor confidence and in turn would boost consumption, which is what China has been trying to do for some time now. Now, we don't have the details on what transpired during the meeting, but analysts are saying that this meeting signals a major cost correction for the private sector because it has been for years now affected by a lot of regulatory restrictions. Now, the focus on tech is also quite important here because, China is banking on it to be a growth engine, given that the trade war has caused some volatility with its export growth. Now, President Xi's meeting with the tech leaders, it does confirm that the government fully supports the tech sector. And, it also acknowledges that China needs them in the ongoing tech rivalry with the U.S. This also shows that the support is in line with China's push to be self-reliant in the tech sector and, eventually future-proof China's technology growth in the long term.
Minxiong, Jack Ma is in attendance at the meeting. He is China's most famous tech entrepreneur. It's been 4 years since he's been out in the political wilderness for him. What's your reading then of China's tech ambitions with his appearance?
Yes, as you said, Mark is a very symbolic person in the private investment area. And this definitely marks the end of the so-called tech bust since 2021. And it's not the first time that Chinese government tried to ease the regulation of the tech industries since 2023 and then 24. It's not at least 5 times that the Chinese government has tried to send the message to the private sector that the Beijing government tried to ease further. But this time around, I think it's quite different with the presence of Ma and also a very strong message with the drafting into law of the government support to private sector since last year, which means that Beijing is getting very serious about that. So it's quite positive actually. And overall, as the meeting is quite the private companies represented in the meeting means a lot for non-tech companies, and it means that the China government is further towards private sector, including smaller companies.
Deborah, I want to turn to U.S.-China trade tensions. Given U.S. export controls in place for Chinese tech products, is China's focus on tech now a double-edged sword?
Well, there's always going to be a dual use for tech. So using tech as a growth engine will no doubt present some challenges for China in the long term. Externally, we know that it will be leaving China more vulnerable to higher tariffs or even more export controls by the U.S., especially with the ongoing trade war. And we've already seen how DeepSeek, has rattled the world. On the U.S. side, we understand that U.S. has proposed a bill to ban imports of AI tech and IP developed in China, and it's also looking at banning exports of U.S. AI tech to China. Meanwhile, just today, South Korea just suspended the download of DeepSeek over privacy concerns. So that's all happening on the external front. And domestically, the emergence of tech, the reliance of tech is going to inevitably restructure China's economy, although it will be presenting more career opportunities. But we're also looking at the potential trend of manpower displacement, especially among people who've been employed by traditional industries for a very long time, say in manufacturing, agriculture, or even textiles. So the question is, how fast can China restructure or train this segment of the population? Because, eventually it still wants to keep its unemployment rate down because it will affect consumption. Min Xiong, a question for you. Given this meeting, that just transpired, how are investors reacting to this? And do you see any resurgence in confidence?
Yes, I heard on the ground many chatting about who sit where in the meeting. A lot of discussion around that. And in the stock market, since a couple of days ago, the tech sector have been outperforming towards VS others sectors. It means that investors are expecting so much from the meeting and also for the upcoming MPC, of course. And also we are amid the very strong seasonal effect in the market as well after the Chinese New Year. And it's a good time really to send such strong message to the market. And also today is the first day of the launch of the various Star Board or Sci-Tech Innovation Board ETF today. And the launch has been quite successful according to news. And for non-financial market investors, I think for entrepreneurs, it's quite a different story, by the way. This is quite big. For example, just now I mentioned that it's not the first time the government has sent such kind of message to the private sector, and entrepreneur might prefer to wait and see, I think.
Apart from the sentiment lift, China's latest tech star, DeepSeek founder Liang Wenfeng was at the meeting. How big of a lift can the AI platform give Chinese markets, which already is essentially in a bull run with tech stocks at the moment?
Thanks for the question. Yes, I think it's for short term quite good for the market. The AI-related hype, or it's also a very good opportunity for investors to long stocks at this moment. But for the overall economy, I think it's quite a different story. For the economy, it might be positive for medium or longer term, especially longer term. But for the short term, I think other factors matter more for the short term economic targets.
Min Xiong, thank you very much. That was CNA's Deborah Wong and Liao Min Xiong, who is senior economist and head of TS Lombard Asia Pacific. Tech counters in focus with that symposium in Beijing. Investors speculated on who attended and the seating arrangement. Notably absent were Baidu founder Robin Li and JD.com boss Richard Liu. Baidu shares tumbling to its worst sell-off since November 2024 in Hong Kong today. DeepSeek's founder was there, Tencent Holdings advancing 4% after it introduced its DeepSeek AI chatbot onto its WeChat messaging platform. Look at Greater China markets now, and it's a mixed bag. Hong Kong stocks surrendered early gains as it approached a 5-month high today, ending the day flat. The tech index lost 0.5% after rising by as much as 1.6% in intraday trade. Both the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component rose thanks to Goldman Sachs upgrading its targets for Chinese equities and corporate earnings. Japan's economy is in expansion mode as companies boosted investment and net exports improved. Annualized GDP grew 2.8% in the fourth quarter, more than double a Bloomberg survey forecast of 1.1%. The strong reading was driven primarily by recovery in capital expenditure and external demand. Japanese exporters resorted to front-loading exports through the fourth quarter in anticipation of higher trade tariffs under U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, that strength also helped offset a downturn in private consumption growth, which slowed to 0.1% in Q4 from 0.7% the prior quarter. The data comes just weeks after the Bank of Japan hiked interest rates to their highest level in 17 years, citing increasing confidence in the Japanese economy. The Japanese yen getting a boost from those upbeat GDP numbers as traders priced in the case for more rate hikes from the BOJ later this year. The Japanese yen currently up by 0.35%, 151.78 to the dollar. Investors are factoring in around 35 basis points worth of additional rate hikes by the end of the year. Nikkei 225 ending the day just marginally higher. And that's it for business. Oteli, back to you.
Thanks so very much, Roland. We're going to go for another short break now, but coming up next on East Asia tonight, Taiwan People's Party elects Huang Kuo-chang as its new leader, months after its former chairman was caught up in a corruption probe. Can he re-energize the island's third biggest political party? Well, we'll be speaking with an expert. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un breaking ground for new apartments to mark a major anniversary. This is East Asia tonight. China flies in a top official to oversee the repatriation of hundreds of its nationals from the Thai-Myanmar border, the latest move to clean up cross-border scam gangs. Beijing accuses Washington of serious backpedaling on Taiwan after the U.S. State Department removed a key phrase from its website concerning Taiwan's independence. And South Korea blocks the download of the Chinese app DeepSeek over privacy concerns, sparking rebuke from Beijing about politicizing trade and tech. A Taliban delegation is in Japan seeking humanitarian support, a first for the group since it took control of Afghanistan in 2021. Well, the delegation reportedly arrived in Tokyo Sunday, and they include ministers in charge of diplomacy, healthcare, and education. They were invited by the Nippon Foundation, along with the former Japanese head of the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan. Well, Tokyo has maintained its diplomatic functions in Afghanistan, even though it does not officially recognize the Taliban government. Now, Japan also provides medical support through the UN. The Afghan economy collapsed after U.S. troops withdrew in 2021, and a World Bank report says that the economy remains fragile. The Taliban government has also been criticized for restricting women's rights to education and jobs. A North Korean state media has released a video of their leader Kim Jong-un breaking ground for new apartments on the anniversary of his late father's birthday. Well, the apartments are part of the North Korean leader's pet project to build 50,000 new homes in 5 years. It was launched in 2021 in a bid to boost the economy and the plan to release at least 10,000 new flats in Pyongyang a year. Now, Mr. Kim spoke to a crowd of construction workers and said that the project was in its final stage.
지난 4년간 한치 어김이 없었던 것처럼 투쟁 노정이 안겨오고 연연히 일도 세운 민민의 새 거리들에 있습니다. 이는 곧 우리 당의 수건을 창조의 기... 나는 이틀 전 낙원군에 가서도 말했습니다. 영광인 내 조국의 위대한 수도 평양 만세.
Now, Mr. Kim also visited his father's mausoleum over the weekend, the first such visit in 4 years. He was accompanied by other senior officials and his sister, Kim Yo-jong. Former leader Kim Jong-il died in 2011, but his birthday is a major holiday in North Korea called the Day of the Shining Star. Looking beyond East Asia, the U.S. is trying to play down concerns ahead of controversial talks on the Ukraine war in Saudi Arabia in the coming days. Well, the meeting will see only the U.S. and Russia at the table, apparently, without Ukraine and Europe. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump says the Ukrainian president will be involved, but did not say when. He added that he will be meeting his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, very soon.
There's no time set, but it could be very soon.
Like this month?
Well, it'll be soon. We'll see what happens. But they're meeting right now. And that's more. I mean, this should have been done 4 years ago, 3 years ago before it started. But it should have been done immediately after it started, as opposed to now, 3 years later.
Meantime, America's top diplomat Marco Rubio told CBS News that Europe could be brought in if talks advanced. But he warned there is a long way to go before starting any peace negotiations. Trent Murray has more from the Munich Security Conference.
Well, as the Munich Security Conference comes to a close, already Europe is now gearing up for yet another set of defence talks. We understand senior European officials will be coming together this week for an emergency summit to discuss the war in Ukraine. That follows news that a US delegation led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be holding direct one-on-one talks with a Russian delegation in Saudi Arabia. A discussion we understand to be centred on trying to strike some sort of peace deal, some sort of diplomatic solution to the war in Ukraine. But news of that meeting has caused some concern here in Europe amid fears that European countries could be sidelined in those talks between Moscow and Washington.
Can you assure this audience that Ukrainians will be at the table and Europeans will be at the table?
The answer to that last question, just as you framed it, the answer is no. The answer to the earlier part of that question is yes. Of course the Ukrainians are going to be at the table. I mean, who would be foolish to say they wouldn't?
President Zelensky of Ukraine is saying his country did not receive an invitation to those talks.
Maybe there is something at the table, but not on our table. So I didn't see any invitations, envoys, and etc. from Ukraine to meet with some other envoys.
That comes in contrast to what the US is saying. They say they did invite Kyiv. Certainly the Ukrainians have said that there should be no discussion about Ukraine without Ukraine. Those were President Zelensky's words. He also said there should be no discussion about Europe without Europe.
Europe needs to be a part of this process. Ukraine needs to be a part of this process. If not, this type of ceasefire is not going to be credible.
So we will be closely watching in coming days what the results of these talks will be. But certainly European countries will be wanting to make sure that their voice is heard amid ongoing concerns that the war in Ukraine does continue to represent a major security threat to the European continent as a whole. Another major focus of the Munich Security Conference are those ongoing concerns about a potential trade war. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, has said the EU is one of the biggest and most powerful trading blocs in the world, and she said if the Trump administration applies tariffs to the EU, then she is ready, the EU is ready to return those types of tariffs in kind. That could cause real major implications on the global economy if it indeed sparks a major trade war between these two big economies. Trent Murray for CNA in Munich.
Well, we also spoke with Dr. John Blaxland from the Australian National University and asked him about his expectations of the talks in Saudi Arabia.
It is a little bit worrying because the remarks that have been made in the last few days have been very, very mixed. They've been about sidelining Zelensky and Ukraine, sidelining Europe, conceding that Ukraine would not be in NATO and then apparently backing off from that, and saying very nice things about Vladimir Putin and saying very few nice things about the Europeans or about Zelensky or Ukraine. So, is that part of the art of the deal? Is that some kind of sycophantic behaviour from Trump towards Putin, or is this perhaps more clever than we've let on? The pundits are divided because the devil is in the detail as to how this will manifest itself and whether or not any progress can be achieved in a meeting in Saudi Arabia. But certainly in Saudi Arabia, the chances are that a meeting will take place that will be fairly, kept away from the media, if you like. There'll be a chance for them to be able to have some hard talking about options, about what's at stake. And perhaps, I suspect my sense is what Trump really wants is to break away Putin from his alliance with China. That's ultimately in the Mackinder sense of trying to shift the power balance across the Eurasian landmass. That, to my mind, is the most important factor in Trump's equation. So that means it's quite transactional. It's not about ideology. It's not about the liberal international order anymore. It's about America's preeminence, about America being the superpower, and about the United States calling the shots. And we'll see if they can pull that off. We'll see if that does not generate a reaction that's too negative from the Europeans and others like the Canadians, or whether it generates in them and in Ukraine as well a willingness to make concessions that perhaps they wouldn't have otherwise entertained had it not been for this hardball play from President Trump and his team.
Well, for more of our coverage on the Russia-Ukraine war, do head to our website, cna.asia. And you can also follow the latest on our mobile app. The wildfires in Los Angeles have become one of the costliest natural disasters in world history, destroying entire neighborhoods near America's second largest city. Now, the tragedy also exposed and accelerated another crisis in California, which is the increasing risk of natural disasters driven by climate change. It has made insurance harder to come by and premiums more expensive. Ira Spitzer with this report.
Last month's devastating wildfires in Los Angeles destroyed over 18,000 structures, including these homes in the Altadena neighborhood. Estimates of the damages put the total cost at upwards of $50 billion.
This is up there as one of the largest events ever seen in U.S. history, or in world history for that matter.
Insurance firms are now on the hook for much of that rebuilding cost. And that's not good news for an industry that has already been in crisis in the U.S.'s most populous state. Concerned about the risk from increasingly destructive wildfires, two of California's largest home insurers stopped accepting new policies at all a couple years ago. And before last month's fires, the state's largest insurer, State Farm, dropped about 70% of its customers in LA's Pacific Palisades neighborhood, which suffered catastrophic damage. Many of those homeowners were forced to turn to a state-run insurance plan that has now run out of money due to the massive number of claims. California regulators just announced a $1 billion bailout for the plan, money that comes from the insurance companies that do business in the state. And experts say climate change is starting to have a major effect on those companies' risk calculations.
It has been a growing trend in the insurance business to start to take climate change into account as they try to figure out how to price their coverage.
From wildfires to hurricanes, the risk of damage from climate-related events is increasing, driving insurance premiums in places like California to record levels. Just last year, multiple California insurers raised their rates by over 20%, and 10% of the state's homeowners don't have any insurance at all.
A lot of people that try to model out this risk have looked at historical information and historical data. But the reality is that the frequency and the severity of these events has only been increasing. It's not only in wildfires, but also in floods and hurricanes and other types of perils.
What that means for California's future is an open question. The state has instituted temporary rules to stop companies from canceling coverage in the fire-affected areas, and also plans to address regulatory concerns to keep insurance firms from walking away. But the higher the chances that more homes end up like this, the more expensive that insurance is likely to be. Ira Spitzer, CNA, Los Angeles.
In the U.S., a large and powerful winter storm has triggered deadly floods in the east. At least 9 deaths have been confirmed, 8 in the state of Kentucky. Officials warn that the number of fatalities will likely rise as harsh weather continues to batter the region. A search and rescue efforts are underway. Authorities in Kentucky say they have performed more than 1,000 rescues in less than 24 hours as floodwaters left scores stranded and trapped in their homes. Water levels reached historic highs in the state after the storm gained momentum over the weekend. Now, intense rain and flash floods have also prompted evacuations and caused power outages. More than 300,000 residents spread across Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, and Virginia have been left without electricity. Meteorologists say the U.S. will see its 10th and coldest polar vortex stretching event this season, with the Arctic blast set to bring sub-zero temperatures to large swathes of the country. Coming up on East Asia tonight, Singapore's leader of the opposition, Pritam Singh, was found guilty on 2 charges of lying to Parliament. Now, Taiwan's third biggest political party, the People's Party, or TPP, has elected a new leader, and that's Huang Kuo-chang, who's been acting chairman since January. Well, Mr. Huang won the chairmanship with more than 96% of members' vote. Now, his opponent, Thai-Myanmar, took the rest. And the TPP performed well in Taiwan's presidential contest last year. But it's been hit by corruption allegations against founding chairman and presidential candidate Ko Wen-je, who resigned in January. Now, the party's new leader is a lawmaker and former student activist. He became prominent during the so-called Sunflower Movement protests of 2014 against then Kuomintang President Ma Ying-jeou's bid to force through a trade pact with China. As lawmaker, however, Mr. Huang has pushed the party closer to Kuomintang, and he's also one of the most vocal critics of President William Lai and the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Now, for more insights, we are joined now by James Ifan Chen. He's assistant professor at Tam Kang University. Well, thanks, Professor Chen, for joining us this evening. First up, perhaps you can help our viewers understand what are some of the main differences between Mr. Huang's leadership style from his predecessor, Ko Wen-je. And I guess the question is, how will that change the leadership and shift the TPP's political strategy going forward?
Well, first of all, the similarity between these two leaders, that would be they are all very outspoken and they are all very, they can speak whatever, catchy phrases for the media to put on the headlines anytime. So this is the similarity between these two leaders of the TPP. And then talking about a difference, because, Ko Wen-je, he founded the TPP, back into a couple of years ago, he founded the TPP. And then he becomes the strongman leader inside the TPP. And now Huang Kuo-chang becomes his successor of the TPP. And Huang Kuo-chang, he is a little bit different from Ko Wen-je because he didn't found the party. He didn't join the party in the beginning. He was invited by Ko Wen-je to join the party. So Ko Wen-je is kind of deliver, his ideal successor to Huang Kuo-chang. That's the reason why Huang Kuo-chang, he has won the overwhelming majority of the votes in the party chairman elections last Saturday.
That's right. I mean, he didn't find the party, but he certainly won a landslide victory there. I want to talk about how Taiwan's opposition is fragmented, right? So, Professor Chen, do you think the TPP can somewhat find common ground with the KMT, or do you think that competition is actually going to weaken their influence?
Right now, the opposition party between the KMT and the TPP, they are sharing more common grounds because they have similar agendas to push in the legislative branch of Taiwan. And I think, because Ko Wen-je, he was accused by the TPP administration. So I think there are more rooms for the TPP to cooperate with KMT in terms of the opposition cooperation. And especially right now, the ruling party, they are filing a lot of appeals against the legislative body inside Taiwan. So it makes Taiwan a lot of chaos, political chaos, because this year we are going through a lot of unseat movement. And this unseat movement mostly are launched by pro-TPP, their friends and their affiliations. So this is why the KMT and the TPP, they must cooperate this year to fight against the ruling DPP.
So with the KMT and the DPP, I mean, you say that there is room for them to fight it out. But what political space do you think that gives Mr. Huang the opportunity to carve out for the party? As you've mentioned, he's very outspoken, for instance.
Because Huang is very outspoken, so this is something that Huang will let the voice of TPP to be heard by the voters. And because this movement, unseat movement, this year mainly focus on KMT legislators. So Huang Kuo-chang, he must help to consolidate the votes of KMT legislative members in order to exchange for a bigger room for his party, which is TPP, to perform in the municipal election, local election in the 2 years to come. Huang he himself is interested in performing and attending one of the local elections to running for the mayorship in 2026.
And you mentioned he's got 2 years to consolidate those votes. So what are the most important thing that he has to prioritize?
I think the most prioritized is some of the civil movements here in Taiwan. He wants to consolidate some of his party base by pushing some of the relevant and consequential bills in the legislative yuan. And the legislative yuan in his party, in the TPP, actually requires Huang Kuo-chang's leadership. But the problem is because Ko Wen-je's pre-setting for this legislator at large inside the Taiwan's People's Party, and they can only serve for 2 years term. And I think now Huang Kuo-chang, he also want to succeed Ko Wen-je's, will and Ko Wen-je's teaching, to tell them they have to stay with the term for the 2-year limits. And if they stay for the 2-year limits, then Huang Kuo-chang must step down in the year of 2026. So, he has to deliver something handsome through the legislative process. And without cooperation with the KMT, it's very hard for the 8th seat member of the TPP to win in the parliament.
Now I want to talk about the cross-strait relations with China. That's always a hot button topic. What role do you see the TPP playing here, in shaping Taiwan's response? And also, how do you see Huang's leadership influencing this?
I think Huang, he will stand with Ko Wen-je's, leadership style. In terms of the cross-strait relations, I think they actually open a room for dialogue with the parties across Taiwan Strait, which means the Chinese Communist Party, and they mean to communicate and keep the channel open, because they know the importance to working not only with the United States but also working with China. That would be one of their priorities to take care of the cross-strait issues. And I think Huang Kuo-chang, following Ko Wen-je's lessons and following Ko Wen-je's instructions, he will like the TPP to maintain all channels open to communicate with China if necessary.
Yeah, and you touched on U.S. there a little bit, and curious to know, how do you think Taiwan's opposition is evolving and the kind of strategies they need to use to stay relevant, especially in an era with Trump and also obviously shifting global dynamics?
Nothing is very certain under the Trump administration. I think, both the opposition party and the ruling party here in Taiwan, they are finding a way to, work with the United States. And as you know, that the president of Taiwan, he's actually urging for the defense budget increasing and also buying more natural gas, liquefied gas, natural gas from the U.S. and also encouraging Taiwanese businessmen to investment in the U.S. to boost the so-called U.S. and Taiwan relations. And I think opposition party, they share the same value because all of the priorities here, no matter who is in power in Taiwan, the U.S. and Taiwan relation will always be the first priority.
All right, thanks very much. Thanks so very much for your analysis, James Ifan Chen, assistant professor at Tam Kang University. Now, in other news, Singapore's leader of the opposition, Pritam Singh, says that he will be appealing against his sentence and conviction after he was found guilty on 2 charges of lying to Parliament. And the court fined him the maximum amount of 7,000 Singapore dollars for each charge. After nearly 3 hours in the courtroom, the Workers' Party chief addressed the media, describing the verdict as disappointing. Now, his charges relate to lies he told a parliamentary committee who had asked him about the conduct of former WP MP Raisa Khan. Well, Singh says that the court decision will not stop him from contesting in the general election, which must be held by this November. He also dismissed suggestions that he should resign from his party position.
I think the need of the hour is for me to step up, not step down. Elections are imminent, and it's not going to be an easy election, as I have repeatedly shared in the course of my public speeches with fellow Workers' Party members. So we'll have to fight hard, and that's what we will do.
Well, in meting out the sentence, the court said it was necessary to send a message on the importance of giving truthful information when under oath. The Workers' Party chief was later asked whether the verdict would impact his party's morale.
The path of choosing opposition politics is not for the faint-hearted, and I am grateful and actually privileged to be in the company of fellow party members who have worked hard to provide an alternative to Singaporeans, and at least insofar as having a proper check and balance in Parliament.
And that's all we've got for you in East Asia tonight, this Monday. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia. And also look us up on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks for watching.